friends, and welcome to day 13 of Inktober. Bear with me a second, I'm fighting with my tape. Hope you guys all had an awesome day. I had a nice relaxing one with my mom. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so today's verse again comes from Psalms, and it's Psalm 23:3, and it says, "He refreshes my soul, he guides me along right paths for his name's sake." And so today's image that I chose is a nice little path through the woods, and we'll get that started as soon as I get this guy taped down. That piece might be a little small, although I think the next piece will cover it. We'll see. Not quite. So one more little piece. Bloop. There we go. Let's turn on one more light here. That's better. Okie doke, let's do this. All right, I'm going to start back here with my little gate. My goal is going to be to have the brightest spot coming through this gate here. We'll see if that works. So my reference image for today was a picture I took back in 2009. I went on a trip to Northern Ireland with some classmates and a teacher from Asbury College, and it was a really amazing trip. I loved my time there. And yeah, so this was actually on the property where we stayed. So right through this gate, just beyond it, is this big, huge manor house. It's really cool. And then this pathway here leads down to the ocean. It goes through this nice little wooded area. And once you get past this area here, it goes uphill, and then this amazing reveal onto the coast. And it was just so beautiful. Maybe this is cliche for an American to say, but it reminded me of the fantasy woodlands that you see in movies or TV shows, or like I'd fallen into a C.S. Lewis book. It was just kind of magical looking, and yeah, it was neat. So I took way too many pictures on that trip. I don't know, can you have too many pictures? I took a lot of pictures either way. And yeah. So this was in Dundrum, Northern Ireland. And someday I would definitely like to go back. to a lot of beaches. Both of my parents are from Southern California, and so I grew up with a love of the ocean and the beach, and this was a really unique beach. It was very calm, almost like the coastline of a lake even, but the tide was just amazing. So it would, when the tide was out, it would go out, gosh, I don't know, it felt like at least half a mile. Maybe it wasn't quite that far, but it sure felt like it. And if you weren't careful when the tide started coming in, it wouldn't come in evenly. So if you're out walking along the tide line when it was out and it started coming back in, it could often come in behind you, and you could end up being caught on a sandbar with ocean filling in all around you and not really even realize it. And it was so neat. If you guys ever get a chance, go visit Northern Ireland. It really is magical. So I have my phone plugged in to my computer to let it keep charging while I record. And I'm fighting with the cord of it today. Keeps getting in my way. There we go. Hopefully that'll help. My little cat is unhappy that I've spent most of my day upstairs. So if you can hear her, that's Athena letting me know she is displeased with me. I actually think I took this picture on my very first day in Northern Ireland. It's either my first day or my second. Both of those days sort of run together a bit in my mind because we were a bit jet lagged when we arrived. And the rule was, so we got there, oh gosh, I don't remember what time we got there. Hi, Sarah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, we got there, and the rule was we couldn't go to sleep until it was nighttime in Ireland. So they made us stay up no matter how tired we were. It's actually a good tool against jet lag. But that first day was kind of hard. It was hard to stay awake. It was hard to keep moving. Little bit of culture shock, a lot of lack of sleep. So I don't know if this was my first day or my second, but it was my first time exploring around the grounds of the house. So both of my cats are a little bit hyper tonight. So if you hear random giggles from me, it's because they're running like maniacs around my house. And if you've ever been around a cat during crazy hour, they're really funny. So I'm not really sure how this is going to turn out. This back here is supposed to be a bunch of bushes, kind of like a hedge. And hedges are very, I was going to say unpredictable, but that's not the right term. They're hard to mimic because they don't have any obvious details, really. They're just kind of a mass of leaves. So that's why I'm kind of going in rather roughly, and hopefully it turns out looking cool. Thank you. I like my trees too. This one actually is kind of fun because I actually based it off of my photo. And so rather than making it up, I actually went off of a reference for this tree. And I've talked about wanting your highest contrast in the spot where you want the most attention drawn to. And so when I first started, I said that this spot in between the gates, I want that to be my main focus. And so I'm going to make these bushes kind of dark, maybe a little bit silhouetted. I don't know if they're going to end up looking like bushes, but this is fun. You know, I say that I'm not a big fan of abstract paintings. But that said, I love creating them. And I'll tell you why. Because when you do an abstract painting, there's no frame of reference that your viewers can go off of. So they can't look at it and say, hey, you did that wrong. Whereas if you paint a tree or a cat or a person, they can look at it and be like, no, that doesn't look like that person. You did it wrong. Whereas if it's abstract, it's totally in your mind. And so who are they to say that you did it wrong? Non-representational. That's kind of how I'm feeling about these bushes. I know they're supposed to be bushes, but at this point they're feeling kind of like abstract lines, and they're fun to create. Who knows if they'll actually look like they're supposed to. They look more like bushes than you could do. I don't know, I think just about anybody could do this. It's just a bunch of squiggles. So just before coming down to do this, I was upstairs playing Chinese checkers with my mom and jamming out to Home Free, and so I've got some of their songs going through my head right now. If you've never heard of Home Free, you should totally look them up. They are a country slash pop slash acapella slash country. Yes, I know I said country twice. That was on purpose. Group. And they're really amazing. And for those who are just tuning in, this is going off of a reference photo that I took in Northern Ireland. This amazing little path. Whee! I'm glad you guys joined me tonight. If you have any questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to make them in the chat box or add a comment below. And I try and keep an eye on the chat box. I don't always catch them right away, and then I do my best to respond. Now, if I get too into my drawing, then it'll take me longer to respond just because I get distracted. Or focused, I guess you could say. I'm focused on my drawing, so I'm distracted from talking and responding to you guys. Okay. This is kind of a dark area in the tree right in here. Jump. And add a little shading to round out my tree a little bit so it's not so flat. Now it is going to blend in a little bit with my dark bushes, but I'm trying to avoid that by giving it some rim lighting, which is a white line or light line in between the two dark areas, which you wouldn't necessarily see, but it's given to add definition, adds that separation that I'm looking for. It's funny because I remember one of the first trees in high school that I ever really tried to draw. Like, I used to be so intimidated by trees. I thought they were the most impossible thing to do. And at a Bible study, or I guess it was more of a prayer meeting than a Bible study. Anyway, there on one of the walls there was this little etching, I guess. I don't know if it was an etching or a drawing, something. And it was of a tree, and I decided that I was going to copy it. And I did so. I think I did it on a napkin. And I think I still have it somewhere. And it was the first time I drew, like really looked at a tree and tried to draw it accurately instead of, doing one of these little, like, kid drawings of, you've got your tree here and the foliage there. And I was so proud of myself. And then from that point on, I started drawing trees and really practicing them and trying to do them without looking at something. And I guess you could say the rest is history. That's where my love of drawing trees started. It's kind of funny to look back at those moments and defining moments in your life. Be like, this is the moment that happened. But yeah, that's basically the moment I fell in love with drawing trees. Realized I could do it. Thought it was the coolest thing ever. And yeah, they remain one of my favorite things to do. I also think back to, there are so many events, so many people that together urged me into, or pushed me into creating art. And I wonder if even one of those things hadn't happened, if maybe I wouldn't be an artist today. So like my mom started painting, and then we'd have art days in our family where we'd get together and create art together. And then in junior high, I went to a really small school, so I was still friends with the popular girls, but you still had that sort of idea of popular versus not popular, and I wasn't very popular. And the popular girls started drawing, I don't know if you guys are listening to this, maybe you don't agree with me, but this is how I saw it. But they started drawing these little fairy drawings, copying them, and I wanted to be accepted, and so I started drawing them too. That's where my love of drawing fairies started. It's interesting. I like that you like that, Sarah, because going through my art career, I've often felt behind. Talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, when I was 3, I was copying the comic books that I was reading, and I always knew I wanted to be an artist, and I've practiced since then. And no, I didn't know I wanted to be an artist until college, and even then I wasn't really sure. At one point in high school, I considered going into marine biology. In college, if my college had offered it at that point, I might have gone into writing instead of drawing, which is how I ended up going into illustration for my master's. So I still had that interest in writing. I don't know. It's just interesting to see how it all happens. And then over time, and I think the more I create art, the better I get at it, the more I enjoy it. I took piano lessons when I was younger, took about 5 years of it, and I hated practicing, but I loved being able to play. And I think sometimes that's a little bit how it is with me in art, is I didn't like it as much when I wasn't so good at it. And as I've learned and practiced and become better, the better I become, the more I like it, because I'm getting the results I'm wanting, I'm looking for, I'm hoping for. Now this area that I'm just sort of scratching in the picture is just a bunch of leaves all over the ground, lining the path. But I want to make sure my path is obvious, it's delineated, because that's what my verse is about. It's God leading me on the right path. And I guess talking about what led me to art is apropos for talking about God leading me on the right path. I may not have known I was an artist, but he did, I guess. Definitely wouldn't be here doing this if it weren't for him. Do I still play? Not very well. I was probably on the cusp of making headway, of becoming something of a pianist. I was just starting to tackle more difficult pieces like For Elise. And For Elise was the last piece that I learned how to play. And I spent most of those 5 years trying to convince my mom to let me quit piano lessons. And eventually I convinced her because I decided I wanted to play trumpet. And I liked trumpet better because all I had to think about were 3 fingers instead of 10. But I do regret it sometimes. And every once in a while, when I go to my sister's house, she has a little piano, and I'll try playing a little bit. But I wouldn't say I'm a talented pianist, but I can still play for Elise, and that sounds impressive sometimes. At least I used to think it sounded impressive. And then I started noticing that everybody who knows how to play anything on the piano can play for Elise, and then I wondered why I thought it was so cool. Someday I do have the desire to finish learning it, so I learned the part that everybody knows. And then there's a more complicated part where it goes dun 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 da 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 da, and so on and so forth. And that's the part I want to learn to play now, because it's the part that you don't hear very often. And do I still play trumpet? It's not as often as I should. Kind of down to like once or twice a year. I would like to play more. It just doesn't happen often. And my lips, my embouchure is definitely out of shape, so. And by the way, I don't know if anybody who's watching this likes words or is oddly geeky about big words, but I'm kind of proud of my use of apropos. It's a good word. Do you know why most videos you see on YouTube are time lapses? It's because a lot of creating art comes down to something like this, where I'm just spending, 10 minutes or so scratching black lines on a paper. And whereas it takes time to do, it's maybe not the most riveting thing to watch. And so those of us who are artists on YouTube, we tend to want to speed it up a little bit, make it look more instantaneous, more effortless, maybe. More interesting for you guys. Oh, you demand a listening to me playing piano or trumpet. or both. Because I can assure you now I won't wow you on either of them at this point. I ended up pushing all of my creative efforts into visual art instead of audio. And look at that, one side done. Trumpet. I can do that. I could actually play trumpet for you easier than I could play piano because I don't have a piano of my own. I don't know what's going on with Athena, but she's running around chirping. Definitely crazy hour. There we go. Now I've kind of got this river of white leading up to my focal point. So let's see. I'm gonna put some rocks, some hints of something there. That really does look kind of like a river. Hopefully we'll fix that here in a minute. Got this big old tree branch coming down out of the sky. Some leaves and things hanging out. kind of like that it's actually forming a little bit of a cross. That wasn't intentional, but I like it. Okay. Now, I'm going to tone down my path a little bit more, I think. Yeah, I'm going to tone it down a little bit so it doesn't look quite so much like a river. Or maybe it'll look more like a river. Either way. So, get my paper towel wet here. I'm not putting any ink on it because the ink is still wet enough that it will pick it up. And we're gonna do it that way. Still looks a little bit like a river, doesn't it? Maybe I'm okay with that. Tone down the forest floor a little bit. Maybe I'll add texture. Don't know if this will provide the look I'm looking for or not. I'm hoping it keeps my path from looking too smooth like a river and gives it more of that ground texture. I don't want too much back here just because it's going back into the distance. You want more detail up closer. So if I've shown you guys anything this week, I've shown you that just about anything can be an artistic tool, whether it is just water, a paper towel, a toothbrush, you know, your finger, whatever you want. I tell you what, living with cats is not boring. It's definitely an exciting adventure. Yeah. What do you think? Should I be done? I think I'm about done. I think it looks good. Alrighty, sweet. I didn't even make it to 60 minutes. I hope it's dry enough so that I can sign it. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're already a subscriber. That notification bell will just let you know when I upload new videos. I have an Instagram, KRiggsArt, and I have a Patreon, and so if you really want to support me, help me make more videos like this, keep making awesome art, find me on Patreon, KRiggsArt, and select whatever tier works best for you. You could support me for as little as $1 a month, or as high as $100 a month, and each one has a different reward system. So yeah. Go ahead and subscribe, like, comment, head on over to Patreon or Instagram and say hi. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks for joining me. Bye.